Nigeria is a country enriched with human and natural resources which are not properly utilized due to poor leadership, while its citizens wallow in poverty.
One major index of social change today is indeed transformational leadership. Therefore, to achieve the desired socio-economic change in Nigeria today will to a large extent require a transformational leadership style where leaders are visionary, exemplary and selfless.
But the attainment of this level of leadership depends to a great extent on the pattern of process of recruiting people into leadership positions to man strategic spheres of the polity and the country.
Even through leadership, though leadership is not restricted to political circles, the term bad leadership more or less often refers to political office holders whose mode of recruitment bothers on special selection against election, appointments based on chronism against that based on merit and track record.
Given the fact that democratic climate in Nigeria was designed and handed down by the military, various efforts at civilizing our democracy have not completely succeeded, with factors such as party affiliations and loyalty overriding issues-based manifestos and personal integrity in electioneering processes, factors which have strong military ties.
No matter the situation, leadership is like a sacred trust which tends to influence situations and create a positive change. How to ensure that the right patterns are followed in entrusting and accepting leadership positions for effective delivery this morning. That's what we're talking about.
Well, to help to throw more light on this issue, of course, we have our very own, I'll call him our in-house guest this morning.
Yes,
and
indeed.
He's here to be with us this morning on Kakaki. Good morning. You're welcome back from your trip.
Good morning, Ada.
It's good to have you.
Yeah, good to
have you.
Okay, let's start this way. First of all, let's look at what it means to be a leader. How would you describe leadership?
In one simple word, leadership is servitude.
Service to the people.
Yeah, leadership is servitude. You know, if it's first and foremost, and you see, there is a very popular saying that intimacy begins with you. Mm. So, for you to be able to be a good servant or to be a good leader, you must be first and foremost be intimate with yourself. And for you to be able to attain that kind of level of intimacy or depth, then we're talking about your content. And then when you now take it from the context of content, we now start talking about quality. And then we start talking about the education. So I think let's first and foremost try to now drive it from our educational system, because that begins to help us to now find out, you know, because that's the source of selection. Where in a country where, from one of the statistics I read, out of the 43 million people who are supposed to be in school, less than 20 million are. And this is in primary, at the primary level. At the secondary level, out of the 33 million, about 6.4 million. And then you come to the tertiary levels, you have less than 20%, making jump. And trust me, between me and you, we know that less than 2% of these people can even write their names when they get out of school. So let's first and foremost look at this pool of where our leaders are coming from. That begins to now, truly tell you or shape the kind of discussions we're going to be having this morning.
Okay, now let's go back a little bit into history. Now, if you look at, from when Nigeria became a republic, and of course when we had our independence till now, what would you say has happened so far? Because back in the days, we used to look back at our leaders and say, the times of Nnamdi Azikiwe and the times of, great leaders who set the pace for Nigerian leadership and the renaissance, of course, to the democracy that we practice now. So what would you say so far has gone wrong? Where did we get it from?
It's a very exciting question, Adora, because, this is actually where you can get it crystal clear. What had happened is that what you had at independence, I've said this before, was a market-driven infrastructure or market-driven economics. So what you had running that market-driven infrastructure was leadership that was just trained to be able to now deal with administrative issues. Because all you need when you're doing proper marketing is actually administration and a marketing strategy. Now, at that point in time, a lot of the leaders that had come in could only fit into the university system. Okay? Most of the people that came back to help with the independence strategy, very few of them actually now got into administration. A lot of them were now in the universities, and that was where you were now having a lot of, competition coming, good leadership, good quality, being now, produced from the university system. Yeah. But the moment that university system got into trouble because of bad administration, you now had a system where there were very few jobs, coming, everybody wanted to have a university, and then one very big thing that all of us somehow now have forgotten now kicked in, and it is called brain drain. So much so that I think there was a study they conducted in 2007 or 2006 that showed that you had 21,000 medical doctors, Nigerians, working in America. And way back home here, you had 20 doctors to 100,000 people. Technically meaning that they had one doctor to 5,000 people. And they weren't being paid. And they were not being paid because you now found out that over time now, political gerrymandering became the order of the day. I mean, it didn't need to be anything out of the ordinary. When we were younger, it was such a pride for your father to tell his friends, at 18 you had graduated, at 21 you were doing well in school. But the order of the day now is that after you finish graduating, what happens? You can't get a job. Way back in our days, there were 3 things that could happen to you if you were a first-class material. You either got retained in the university system
to lecture,
and then continue to get a PhD. Okay? Or you got snapped up by the multinational companies that now will come usually, 6 months to graduation to now come and run interviews. Or you get a scholarship. Even if your father was a rat chaser, it was inconsequential.
Okay. Now, looking at the Nigerian situation, how would you describe the leadership pattern in terms of appointments to positions and political party affiliation? Now, what I want us to look at is how leaders are recruited. Because even when leaders are elected, somehow they are still imposed in the Nigerian sphere right now, still imposed on the electorate, in that the party decides who will represent them. And so the choices of the people are quite limited. And then those who are appointed, what are the patterns for appointment for these people who eventually lead the country in Nigeria?
It's very simple. I mean, I have a friend who says the answer is in the question. First and foremost, let's even look at the man, who has emerged as your political leader. How did he emerge? Was it through a social contract? How do we present president? I mean, I was reading an interview. Probably it's not right for me to start calling names, where somebody who was supposed to be president, was called into a meeting where you had 5 people sitting, and they said they showed him a report that was supposed to be coming from the EFCC.
My conscience.
Oh, beautiful. Okay, and I mean, what does that tell you? What does that tell you? I mean, there were 5 people that are seated, and then for the rest of a man's life, he's now struggling to now say, oh, the things you accuse me of, I didn't do. So when you begin to now look at the process of how your leaders emerge in the first place, then how their aids, it's simple. I mean, I help you. Some of us will go and carry ballot boxes. This is how these things are planned. Sinami, your own is to make certain that you carry the ballot box. Adora, your own is to make certain that you start shooting guns. Emeka, your own is to make certain that the moment we are losing, that pulling boat is burnt down, or something. And then by the end of the day, one of us emerges as a honorable or distinguished or excellency or something. Do you expect him to go to university, leaving the 3 of us out? Is that going to happen? So I think it's without sounding rude. I think what we have here is a situation where you have, some structural defects that all of us are actually guilty of. Because way back in those days when we were growing up, one of the worst things that could happen to you was to come back to the village driving a car. You couldn't explain how you got the money. The first thing they did was your mother stops going to church. I mean, in my village, this is a true life story. Way back in those days of people doing fraud. One boy bought his mother a flatboot Mercedes, and then doing this because my place were very good with Thanksgivings, and everybody's mom had come into everybody's parent, and they say, "Oh, Mama, just wait, you're going to be." And the woman was there gloating. I was a lot younger then, but But he left an impression on me. You know what happened? By the end of the day, the priest now said, Mama, this your son 2 years ago was just a mechanic repairing fridges. You must need to go and find out how he made this his money, because the stories we are hearing are not too palatable. We're not accusing him, but I don't think you should bring this, to the altar of God. Please, ma. Way back in those days, I mean, you play girls. I'm certain that your mothers will bring a list. What you took to school was what you brought back.
It had to be.
And woe betide you. I'm talking about a pencil.
It's not yours.
That's not yours. Okay, but what has happened today to us? We are busy paying for our children to pass jump. Us now. We are busy giving our younger sisters money to give to lecturers. So tomorrow, if any of us who does this emerges as a leader, are you going to take a born-again priest as your SA?
Okay, now let me come in here. You brought a subject that really is very, very important. And that is how 5 people can decide the fate of this nation. And you mentioned a paragraph from one of the chapters in Peter Odele's new book, which is really causing a rave, My History, My Conscience. Now, you look at that and you cannot but say that merit is slaughtered on the altar of mediocrity in this country. And when you look at that practice and how people, just 2 people, can sit down in a room and determine the fate of a country, you wonder, Doctor, are we really practicing democracy?
Do you really have a country? You see, you can have a state, but a nation has to. There are indices, there are parameters that grow a nation, and one of those parameters is what they call shared values. Okay, 3 of us can decide to form a state, and what you now look at a country and a state is what production model, what drives your superstructure. You must be able to now understand how your infrastructure is developed. It tells you if you're a state or if you're a nation. When you have your superstructure, which is your politics, developing your infrastructure, then you have a state. But when you have your substructure, developing your infrastructure, then it simply means that what happens at the level of your production, this is very simple economics, now determines what you now have is what they call, demand-driven infrastructure. Not when a man wakes up in the morning and says to you, I'm going to give everybody water, I'm going to give everybody light, I'm going to build roads. That happens in a state. And when you have that kind of situation, the end point is profit and loss. So to the man, there is no, you see, sometimes I've tried to teach, profitability from 3 levels. I try to tell my students, you see, profitability, the lower hanging fruit you see as profit and loss is actually a little bit, insignificant. When you compare it to your human capacity, or what you call your human capital, and what you call your infrastructure development. This is now when innovation comes in. This is now when education comes in. This is now when the wrong people will never emerge. America is one of the craziest countries in the world. You want to walk around naked, you can do that. You want to marry a dog, you can do that. You understand what I'm saying? But the day you decide you want to come into public life, be certain you haven't done any of those things.
Okay. All right, Doctor, now, the political terrain in Nigeria seems to be that of winner takes it all. Now, for any ruling political party in Nigeria, which for the most of our democracy, all of our democracy has been the People's Democratic Party, PDP. The situation you find is whereby this party wins. Everybody else that is appointed, in any important office in Nigeria comes from the political party, making the other parties just pure plain opposition, irrespective of the fact that you might have in the opposition better or more qualified persons in that party. What is the implication of this for the nation?
It's very simple. Let me even tell you what happens. Okay, I wouldn't be surprised if Kakaki is classed as one of the TV stations that are anti-government.
True.
Why? Because somehow you now want to deal with issues and then you bring people, they say, oh, these are also enemies of government. They're not even politicians. Okay, I've had situations when people have called me on the phone and say, oh, why are you always critical of government? Why are you always... And I'm like, did you actually listen to the interview? Did you actually listen to the conversation? So I think the problem Tsunami is very simple. Like I told you before, we don't have what you call democratic values. What we have is what you call market values, if you may. And it is all about maximizing your profits and making certain Nigeria, for all I care, right now is a market. Because if you are not looking at these indices I've just told you, that you're running a country where you have attrition of 6.4 million young people who are supposed to be earning in the university out of 34 million. And you have less than 20% of your students ending up in the universities and less than 5% of them being able to even write their names correctly. This is supposed to be a disaster for everybody. And worst of all, you are having more and more and more and more of brain drains. A lot of us would do little teachings here and there. Some of us travel all the way to Zambia to go and teach. Why? Because the system does not have any place for you. And they say to you, you want to join us, come and join politics. So you're talking about the politicians. What about those of us who are not politicians? You don't even know where to begin.
Definitely, Doctor. I mean, the list is endless. Now, square pegs in round holes, that's what we find in Nigeria. We've used America, for example. What we find, there are leaders who steal all the money and store them in foreign countries. Now, America is talking about fiscal cliff, and they are thinking about the people. And that they are actually considering, taxing the people who earn more taxes than people who earn lower. Now, if you look at Nigeria, even just a few weeks back, SEC was walked out, during the budget defense. Now, you look at that and you see what pretends between Arumote and the National Assembly. What can you say with that regards, in a nutshell, because you're about to round up? For me,
it spells, it gives you. I don't know how to describe it. I mean, I thought it's something that the president should have gotten personally involved in. You're talking about our capital market, for crying out loud. Every other market in the world, every other economy in the world that we're trying to be runs on their capital markets. And I do not see, there's no, I don't know a remote, I've never met her. But for all I care, I think this is my gun is bigger than yours. And it is impunity that we must resist with everything we have in this country.
Because honestly, the reason why I brought this up is because, it's also alleged that, the implementation of the budget will not come to pass, as we supposedly said on the 1st of January 2013, because of all these hiccups. Yeah. Now, if a few people can determine how Nigeria is run, is that still not a problem?
Ma'am, that's what I said to you. What you have is a market. What you have is profit and loss. As far as these guys are concerned, you don't matter. And let me tell you why you don't matter. Sorry, let me get a little personal. I just got back from Tel Aviv. And do you know what happens there? Everything they do there is automated. Everybody there is known. You want to check into a hotel with your money. They say to you, no, let's have your credit card. Because everybody is counted and counts for. The first thing we don't have in this country is that we don't know how many we are. And me and you are in the mob. That's the truth. I mean, you want to get a driver's license in this country today and you don't have legs and eyes. Trust me, you'll get one. And somebody tells you automation. So until you're able to first and foremost put this country where you are talking about the round peg in a round, there's no hole.
Not to talk of
there's no hole because you can at least try to force it in. There is nothing. And until we begin to build this substructure, my sisters, I have said this earlier, where from Cotonou we have gone to Benin. From Benin we have gone to London. From London we have gone to Dubai. Now we're in Turkey. We're in India. We're in Madagascar. Looking for underwears. Looking for chains. Looking for earrings. To buy. To wear. And you are not talking about how many of these your people that has been brain drained. Where are they? What are they doing? Is there any system in this country that allows you, Adora or Senami, to be able to now, apart from what it is you're doing here, you bring in people to now come and for crying out loud, the man doesn't want to watch, there's a button, he puts it off. Or he goes to CNN or Al Jazeera, or for crying out loud, music channel. I say, oh, this people have come again. Is there any way that we can be able to now enforce the new thinking? Because I thought that transformation should have been driven by innovation. And that what the president should have been able to do first and foremost was to establish what we can call a ministry or organization for innovation and new thinking. All right. Because that's what transformation is supposed to be all about. And that captures all we've been trying to talk about in the past 10 minutes.
Since you brought that up, now the president's, this administration, when it came on board, it said that its main focus is a transformation. Its agenda is a transformation agenda. Now, the power in that word or phrase, most of the time, you will say risk being enveloped in ridicule and cynicism. Because before you say Jack Robinson or before you say Senami Ohiomokai, somebody is saying the transformation agenda of the president. According to the transformation agenda of the president, one appointed official or the other. Now, beyond saying that, have we seen any transformation in the last 12 months?
First, madam, transformation, in a minute, transformation leads to integration. Transformation is a first step to integration. So if you don't understand the steps of transformation, what it is you do, transformation is somebody's thinking. Integration is now walking the talk. So what we have now simply done is that the man wakes up and says, I want to transform the country. And this is my dream. And everybody has now turned it into a program. And like you said, you know, because we have left it at the realm of that dream, it begins to become somebody's imagination. And you think that's what the president wants to hear. I think what the man wants to hear is, how are you going to help me take this thing to the next level? Not to tell me because transformation agenda means truly nothing.
All right.
Until it's worked.
Until it's worked.
Until it's worked. Thank you so much, Dr. Emeka Okengwu. I'm sure that the presidency will consider that in their New Year resolutions as we go into the new year tomorrow. We've been joined by Dr. Emeka Okengwu, Development and Management Consultant, who has said transformation is the first step to integration. And integration is simply working the talk. Definitely that's what we've been looking at this morning, and we have been looking at the nation recruitment of leaders here in Nigeria.